What were the 10 best moments of the 2024 postseason? We'll discuss that more next here on Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, August 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12, follow the show account on X and Instagram at L_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix, and 3 times a week during the off season. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again for another edition of the show to discuss once again the Summer of Champions for the Florida Panthers as the celebration continues. And going into the weekend, tomorrow, obviously it's Saturday, but tomorrow will make 2 months since the Florida Panthers won their first ever Stanley Cup. So tomorrow will be the 2-month anniversary of that very special day in the history of the franchise. And from at the time of this recording, we are 46 days away from opening night. But who's counting? Obviously, I am because I'm really excited to have some Florida Panthers hockey back. I mean, before we know it, less than a month, we will be doing media day, and then we'll have preseason games starting on Sunday, September 22nd against the Nashville Predators, that doubleheader that they always do every year. But today we're going to talk about Nick Cousins and Luongo's day with the Cup. We're going to give a little love to the AMERIGOL LATAM Cup that's going on in Coral Springs, and we're going to discuss our top 10 moments of the postseason in the final 2 segments of the show. But first, we are going to start with the days with the Cup. And Nick Cousins brought the Cup on Tuesday to his home in Belleville, Ontario, where there was a dinner party there, also in Toronto where he had it. And just like most of the guys during their days with the Cup, they've had their opportunities to play on the golf course with the Cup right next to it. And this is something that I haven't really spoken about too much. Maybe I did years ago, but something that Alex Baumgartner of the 5 Reasons Sports Network told me, that when he was working at the Hall of Fame in Toronto, that he would hear stories about the players in the bubble that outside of the games played there, that at the local golf courses, that they would run out of lefty clubs because the amount of hockey players who would want to play golf in the middle of their downtime, but they would obviously they weren't bringing their own clubs to the bubble, so they would have to rent them out for the time that when they book their tee time there. So a little bit of a story there about some of the golf courses when the NHL was obviously during 2020, when we were all shut down during the start of the pandemic too. But also Nick Cousins and having that dinner party in Toronto, just think about just the moments that Nick Cousins had, not only in his career growing up with the dinner party, but also I just think about, once again, starting off the second round series against the Toronto Maple Leafs with the first goal of the series, and then the clinching goal in Game 5 in overtime after that Gudas block, going up the ice with the screen. Although Radko Gudas got away with the holding of the stick, Nick Cousins was able to get that game-winning goal on Joseph Woll, and then obviously the big woo from Gudas after that to clinch their spot in the Eastern Conference Final back in 2023. But also the next day, Roberto Luongo also took the Cup to his home in Saint Leonard, Quebec. We spoke a little bit about that when we were on Winans Wednesday, when we were discussing more of the plans and the interview with Jackie Redmond and then CM Punk coming in. But the actual day had not happened yet. So part of his day with the Cup is eating some gnocchi poutine out of it. So gonna do a little bit of a screen share here on the show if you are following this on YouTube. So gonna do a little bit of the screen share here, so you see the gnocchi poutine there from Roberto Luongo there too. So, oh man, it just looks so good, and just makes you want to go out there and get some poutine there. For me, being here in Central Florida, the closest place that I know that serves poutine would be in Disney Springs. So that would that obviously would not compare to getting some poutine out in Quebec, but still, uh, Roberto Luongo getting his opportunity to eat out of it, and we all saw the video of when he ate the pasta out of the cup from his brother-in-law's restaurant in Broward County too. But also Roberto Luongo bringing it to a very familiar place in Saint Leonard, where it was the arena that he went to growing up, and they have their own den of honor there too, where it's Roberto Luongo's Panthers jersey, a Team Canada jersey too, and also some of the other photos that of his career from when he was in New York, Vancouver, Florida, all of his accomplishments there. And also they decide to name the arena after him too. So think about this: when you're growing up playing hockey, your dream is just to get to the NHL. But then you think about the career accomplishments, gold medal, Hall of Fame, and naming rights, everything. And now winning the cup, it really truly does. I mean, I can't speak for him, but it really does feel that this finally for him is full circle for Bobby Lou. So I do want to once again congratulate him to on that accomplishment and getting his day with the cup. Finally, he gets to touch it. I mean, we've been wanting this for him for a long time, and obviously a lot of Panther fans were rooting for the Canucks in that 2011 Stanley Cup final too. But I do want to shift gears right before we transition over to segment number two, which this weekend out in Coral Springs at the Panthers Ice Den, their former practice facility, there is the AMERIGOL LATAM Cup that happens every year. That's been happening every single year since 2018. And also, there's obviously I want to talk about more of the growth of the game too, and something that is going to be that we are going to be able to see that the players have been able to watch is a 7-part docu-series called "This Is Hockey" on the growth of the game, and the production and the places that Colin Cornfand and Donnie Kahn, the who Cornfand works in the NHL Productions, and Khan is a director of hockey development and strategic collaboration. They visited the following places: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and Mexico for the documentary too. So it's really about getting to know some of the guys and gals and even the youth hockey players from different places where hockey might not be as accessible to them too, and then getting this opportunity to come to the Ice Den in Coral Springs for this big 5-day event where games will be going on from the morning to the night. I mean, if you want to look at the schedule for AMERIGOL, it's on their Instagram. It's all 3 sheets of ice are being used, and it's an all-day event and for them. And also, Donnie Khan spoke about the collaboration there, and also even countries in the Middle East where he saw previously the Lebanon and Israel taking part of the Latin Cup too, and now having that a chance to see Pakistan too, a Pakistani team there in the tournament. So that is also a great opportunity for the growth of the game. And also a video that surfaced from the AMERIGOL Instagram was a video of a mariachi band playing Cielito Lindo, which is all, if you hear these lyrics, Canta y no llores, that is that same song of Cielito Lindo from Los Lobos. And also, if you watch any Edmonton Oilers games and you see them win at the end, they play La Bamba. Los Lobos is the same music group that plays Cielito Lindo too. But for the AMERIGOL Latin Cup, it can be watched for free on Flow Hockey. And if you're unable to attend in person like I am, and it'll be going on from it started on Wednesday, but will be going on until Sunday at the Panthers Ice Den. And we do have one of our Locked On colleagues, Erica Ayala of Locked On Kraken and play-by-play voice in the PWHL. They will be there too. So that's where you could follow along if you're unable to go there in person. But we're going to transition to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss more of the top 10 best postseason moments from from the Panthers Cup run all the way to winning the Stanley Cup. We are going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And we're driven for the search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. And ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't help you hire faster. Doesn't just help you hire faster, 90% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. You can leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners to the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And once again, I'd like to thank you guys all for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure you enjoy the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insight on every team in the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And before I start segment number 2, I want to talk about some events going on in South Florida. We spoke about the AMERIGOL LATAM Cup, but also what's going on in the South Florida community is also a autograph signings that are going on at Caneswear this weekend. You'll get to see Vladimir Tarasenko, Aaron Ekblad, and Ryan Lomberg be a part of that. You do have to get your tickets too if you do want to get autographs from the following players, and all the ticket orders and the proceeds will go to Goldie's Gang charity. So also great to see Steve Goldstein being involved once again in charity work too. Also, he has his golf tournament every year right before the preseason starts. So very involved with the community. And also congratulations to Steve Goldstein on joining the FIU broadcast team for select home games for their football program too. So big congratulations to Steve Goldstein. So they have Michael Biamonte, who's the PA voice of the Miami Heat, also PA voice of FIU football. They have the naming rights of Pitbull, and now they bring in Steve Goldstein to broadcast select home games. So pretty cool. FIU on the rise. Hashtag Paul's up. But we're going to discuss more about the top 10 best postseason moments. And in my opinion, obviously, as the host of the show, I'm going to give my 10 best postseason moments. And obviously, just like the regular season moments, if you listen to Wednesday's edition of the show, this is really difficult to put 10 when you think about 16 wins in a Stanley Cup postseason run to win for the Florida Panthers too. And here are a few of them that I've left out here too. Game 6 against the Boston Bruins, games 5 and 6 against the Rangers, game 1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, game 2 against Edmonton, and game 3. Those are outside of my top 10 for this list too. And if you guys have these in your top 10, make sure to comment and tell us why you think you would put those games in your top 10 too. So it's all opinion based too for this. And once again, this is pretty difficult to do. So let me start with number 10. April 29th, 2024, game 5 of the first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this was really the moment where you're getting over the hump for the Panthers. Carter Hagee and Alexander Barkov lead the way with 2 goals each, and they take down Big Brother. 2 goalie interference calls that didn't go the Tampa Bay Lightning's way, and something that we spoke about even in their regular season game and their 9-2 win over Tampa Bay. That was a little bit of what was to come in the future, as there was a lot of goals taken back from the Tampa Bay Lightning during the regular season and the postseason series between these two teams. So a lot has happened in their matchups. So number 9 for me, April 25th, 2024, game 3 of the first round for for this one. Once again, staying with the series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's a 5-3 win over Tampa Bay at Amalie Arena, and the fourth line coming through. Panthers had 0 power plays on the night to Tampa Bay's 4. And we talk about a big save for Sergei Bobrovsky earlier in the series, which we'll get to obviously later on in this program, but we don't talk enough about Bob's save on Michael Eismont off a really juicy rebound when he's already down and having to get back up when they were already trailing 2-1. And that was another game where a goal was disallowed on an offside. And Steven Lawrence, Kyle Okposo, that they came huge with their creating chances off the forecheck, getting it back to the point. Brandon Montour's slap shot with a screen in front made such a big difference in the game for them. And obviously the Steven Lawrence talking to the media, and also the story of just how excited he is constantly of being here. You never see a frown on this man's face ever, and because he's just happy to be there in the NHL, and he was a big contributor to the Panthers winning the cup. And also because of his flexibility on the fourth line, too, he came up big. And also at that time, too, around the time of this series, the Panthers lost Sam Bennett due to injury in that, too. So let's not forget how impactful the depth came when it came to that, with Kevin Stenlund having to move up a line, too. Anton Lindell, too. So even though there was a little bit of an imbalance at the time with the centers, you saw them step up pretty big, especially in game 3 of the first round. Number 8, May 8th, 2024, game 2, round 2 against the Boston Bruins. It was a 6-1 win for the Florida Panthers against the Bruins. Not only did they beat the Bruins, but they beat them up too. But Alexander Barkov with 2 goals, Sam Reinhart with 4 assists on the night, and the famous the superstar for superstar fight between Matthew Tkachuk and David Pastrnak, where you saw David Pastrnak talking to Jim Montgomery. He's saying, "Yep, you have permission to go there to fight Matthew Tkachuk." The Panthers only allowed 15 shots to the Boston Bruins in that game, and that was a big response after losing game 1 on home ice, and shifting the momentum a little bit for the Panthers too. And also game misconducts galore in that game too. The Panthers got a shorty from Brandon Montour, and that was a big highlight moment where Brandon Montour gets in the face of Brad Marchand, and then there have to be separated, and then the Brandon Montour lick impersonating Brad Marchand there too. And also, speaking of misconducts, where a lot of players on the ice went off, guess who was the referee in that very same game? Garrett Rank, which we spoke about Garrett Rank in the previous show of the number one moment, at least my number one moment in the regular season, when he said everybody on the ice gets a 10-minute misconduct for that Panthers game against the Ottawa Senators. He refereed the same exact, not same exact game, but he refereed this game for the Florida Panthers against the Boston Bruins, except he didn't say everybody on the ice gets a 10-minute misconduct, something that we spoke about with Frank Fort, that probably he got a talking to from the NHL lead officials to about, hey, we don't do that. That's not professional for Garrett Rank too. But still, for us fans, it's a really funny moment as far as the journey in the regular season for the Panthers too. Number 7 for me, May 22nd, 2024. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. A 3-0 win over the Rangers. And Sergei Bobrovsky didn't necessarily stand on his head as much as you would see in another game that we are going to talk about later for the Panthers, but a decent volume of shots. But the big difference for the Panthers in this one was Igor Shesterkin playing the puck, giving it to Verhaeghe, and he was trying to make something out of nothing, and it hits off the stick of Alexis Lafreniere and into their own net. And it really, at that moment, and that happened late into the game, into the third period, and one mistake led to a road victory and stealing home ice and setting the tone very early for the Cats. And also the Panthers, this was one of their many stretches of 10 plus minutes without even allowing a shot, which also the Panthers in this game also had a goal disallowed where Ryan Lomberg was in the crease for goalie interference. But hey, and just a few minutes later, when you were thinking 2-0, then back to 1-0, the pressure was still on. It was still a little tense. But that own goal from Lafreniere from Verhaeghe really made the difference in that game, and really put that one to bed in that one, and really set the tone. Number 6, right before we transition to segment number 3, June 8th, 2024. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final, a 3-0 win over the Edmonton Oilers. This one was where Bob really stood on his head, and really the moment where we speak a lot about wizardry from Alexander Barkov. But this play, when it talks about two-way centers, two-way play, which, crazy enough, Barkov, there was some center rankings that came out recently, and they had Barkov number 5 too. And when you consider two-way play on both ends of the ice and his capabilities of being a 40 goal scorer, honestly, he should be higher, but let them doubt Barkov. He went from underrated to top 5 too. But hey, because his game isn't flashy, he's not gonna get the love like Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Leon Draisaitl. Not to say that they're not great players too, but when you see what Barkov does defensively and just pickpockets you and just does it silently and just doesn't talk much, you'll probably never see him in the top 3, or just because of that alone. But catching McDavid on that angle and then going speeding up the ice and getting in on the rush, and then playing that give and go with Sam Reinhart, and then back to Barkov right before he got the pass where Carter Verhaeghe one-touched it past Stuart Skinner. That was just, once again, wizardry from Alexander Barkov too. And credit to Aaron Ekblad for fighting off that forecheck there too. And also the second goal of the game, amazing dump and chase by Sam Bennett too, getting behind the Edmonton Oilers D and then getting it back to Evan Rodriguez, where the Panthers doubled their lead there too for them too, and really put that game in doubt. Put no doubt, excuse me, in that game where the Panthers came out with a 1-0 series lead there. But we're going to continue on this conversation on the other side of this break. We're going to discuss the number 5 through 1 of my favorite moments of the 2024 postseason. We'll continue that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. And you could prioritize the Game Time picks. The curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, and more. And you have seat views, which you could get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And it's the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday edition of the show. And as you noticed, no Fairbanks Friday today. The schedules just didn't align for a recording for today's edition of the show, but Nick Fairbanks' spot here on the show is not going anywhere. So we will hopefully see him next week here on the show. He gets a week off here. So, hey, better for him too here for him. But for the top 5 moments of the Florida Panthers postseason, and once again, this is opinion based for myself and putting this list together. But number 5 for me is May 10th, 2024, Game 3 of Round 2, a 6-2 road win over the Boston Bruins. And this was Sam Bennett's first game back since the injury. Let's not forget, in Game 2 of the first round, which he got 2 points prior to taking that slap shot from Montour onto the hand, which had him out for for the rest of that series and even the first 2 games of this one. But this one was a special teams explosion for the Panthers. 4 power play goals, and Bennett, not only in his first game back, when he was trying to protect that hand and shielding himself, delivered a punch to Brad Marchand's face, which we didn't see the video until a few days later of that angle where of him trying of the glove making full contact with the face of Brad Marchand. And even before the opening faceoff, let's not forget that with everything that happened in Game 2, with the Panthers literally beating them up, Brad Marchand tried whispering to Alexander Barkov prior to the faceoff of wanting to go, but Barkov was like, no. But also, in the first 29 minutes of the game, the Panthers only allowed 4 shots on goal to the Boston Bruins, and the game became out of reach when the Panthers scored on both ends of a double minor, where Mason Lohrei got Steven Lawrence on a high stick. So Panthers score on both ends and put the game away after that. And that was, if I were to go back and listen to that episode, I would not be surprised if I spoke about that moment when the game was won or lost. If you are an avid an everydayer of Locked On Panthers, you'll know about the structure of our post game shows here on the podcast. Number 4 for me, May 12th, 2024, the very, very next game of this series, too, for this one. A 3-2 regulation win over the Boston Bruins. And this was comeback Cats fashion. And I remember I titled that episode, Composed Comeback Cats. The Boston Bruins led 2-0 after getting 2 goals on their first 5 shots. But the Panthers, after that, took over the game, where they did not allow a single shot from Boston in the final 15 minutes of that period. The game never felt out of reach, too. Even the Panthers getting it to a 2-1 lead and 2-1 deficit, going into the third period, and then the ice tilted after Sam Bennett and Barkov scored 3 minutes and 57 3 minutes and 50 seconds apart, to have it going from tied to a 3-1 series lead. And also the goal that Sam Bennett scored, and also the controversy that came after, like we spoke about earlier, that punch to Brad Marchand, was pushing Charlie Coyle into Jeremy Swayman and then scoring off that power play too. Should goalie interference have been called? Yeah, we were saying that at the time during when the Panthers took that 3-1 series lead. But let's also not forget that in that home loss against the Boston Bruins, the Bruins had goalie interference themselves. And at the time we were talking about, maybe this was a makeup call because of a lot of the controversy that happened prior and the amount of noise that was coming out of Boston from that too. And also, let's not forget, Sam Reinhart didn't finish this game neither. And Kyle Okposo had to step up on the top line. And for that Barkov goal, it was a defensive zone draw. They come up the ice. The puck was very close to exiting the zone, but a little fight for Kyle Okposo to touch it to Barkov, and then Barkov finishes and weaves through the defense to get it to a 3-2 lead, and the Panthers win it in regulation. Crazy to think that a lot of their games were just this close, but the Panthers still found a way, and they were very, very comfortable in these close games too for them. Number 3 for me, February 23rd, 2024, Game 2 of the first round between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Carter Verhaeghe comes clutch once again, as there's that album by Lil Wayne called The Carter 5. That was his 5th overtime winner in the postseason in his career, which he's not tied. He is 3rd all time in postseason winners for Carter Verhaeghe. Only is behind Joe Sakic and Maurice Rocket Richard too. So that's the company that Carter Verhaeghe is in when it comes to how clutch he is in the postseason. Obviously, those two in the Washington series a few years ago, the Game 7 winner in Boston in 2023, and Game 3 of the Stanley Cup final against the Vegas Golden Knights the year prior, and then this added on to that. And we spoke about Sam Bennett and the 2 points prior to taking the shot off the hand, like we mentioned earlier. But the game was tied at 2 with 5 minutes left in the second. Cirelli was driving to the net, a big bounce off the end boards, a quick tap from Stammer to Matt Dumba, and then the bobbery happened. The most iconic save probably in the history of the Florida Panthers, where I still don't know how Sergei Bobrovsky had that save with his back turned to the play and the spinner and creating that spinorama and the moment that happened and what it could have meant for the series. And also, we don't talk about another save too. We spoke about the Asamont save in Game 3, but also prior to overtime, he had a big save on Anthony Duclair on a breakaway where he got the poke check on right before him getting a shot too. So also a big stop that Sergei Bobrovsky had in that game too. Number 2, Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. A 3-2 overtime win for the Florida Panthers. And statistically, they had 2 power play goals, but just like a certain game, the Panthers got a goal a few seconds after. Sam Bennett came up with speed, followed his shot, and poked it in right behind Igor Shesterkin in that one, which Sergei Bobrovsky had a secondary assist on. Carter Verhaeghe had a power play goal, which was batted out of the air on a centering feed. And then the point where the turning point of the entire postseason, the game-winning goal on Sam Reinhart's power play goal, where everybody touched the puck. And that goal was textbook Panthers special teams for that season, with just doing the quick triangle play down low and then back to the bumper for Sam Reinhart. And also, that was the same game where Chris Kreider attempted to throw Matthew Tkachuk's mouthpiece into the crowd. So that also created a spark in conversation too when the Panthers tied the series. And the Panthers, from there, we even saw spurts of just pure dominance in that series too. I mean, you feel that Game 3 for the Panthers, it's just dominating possession, and then you have that one face-off where, let's not forget, Sam Bennett was still dealing with that injury, so he wasn't taking draws as much too. And so off the draw, they were out of position, and a little bit of a miscommunication right before Wenberg scored to take a 2-1 series lead too. So slowly but surely, Sam Bennett was making his way back to taking draws for him too. So that was a little bit of miscommunication there, but still, even then, you felt that the Panthers still had more to give after that. And hey, once they tied the series, they didn't have home ice, excuse me. Tied the series and cut how with their comfort level of playing on the road too. That for them really truly is when the series turned for the Cats. And number 1, what else would be number 1? Because if I did not have this on number 1 as the first, you guys would have every right to cancel me. Honestly. June 24th, 2024, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Florida Panthers win 2-1 at home against the Edmonton Oilers. And we speak about moments in the postseason where Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Reinhart struggled for a good part of that Stanley Cup Final in between Games 2 and 6 for them. And one of the many times that the Panthers scored after the power play expired, one of them came off that power play 2, where, let's not forget, Verhaeghe and Montour were taken off power play 1, and Erod throws it into the net, and Carter Verhaeghe redirects it in past Stuart Skinner to get them to a 1-0 lead. And even after that breakaway from Matthias Janmark, the Panthers were still very tight in how they played. And then obviously the clincher for the Panthers, with Kulikov clearing the net with his positioning very close to for that going in, and then Carter Verhaeghe's quick out going up the ice and crashing the net to create that screen as Sam Reinhart shot the puck, got it by Skinner, and then the Panthers locked it down. And obviously, just like how they did it multiple times in the conference final in Games 5 and 6 specifically against the New York Rangers, got it to the corner. And this is the thing. Panthers in training camp with their working and board battles, just those little fundamentals worked out for the Panthers in building that strength in their board battles too, for the crunch time moments for them, especially if they're taking defensive zone draws and the opposition having that extra attacker for them. Obviously, in Game 6 against the Rangers, we saw Artemi Panarin score his first goal of the series too, and it was too little, too late with Mika Zibanejad breaking his stick. But in the Stanley Cup final, too, once again creating, holding their own in their own end, and that as a fan is stressful when it's on your end, because you never know that if for the Panthers, if Edmonton somehow got that puck out and then scored to tie the game, then it gets really tense in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. But those extra reps for someone like Nico Mikkola definitely works out for the Panthers, and hopefully we see more of those for sure in the postseason. It'll just remind us all of the great moments that we saw in the postseason. So thank you guys all for listening to this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Once again, comment below on your favorite moments of the postseason, and any of the ones that I left out here, tell me why those are your favorite moments of the postseason, and let me know, and I'll definitely have a conversation with you guys about it too. But thank you guys all for listening. We will see you guys next week on the show. And also, once again, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.